Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Padavajacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavajacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. 57. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 29th day of January 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 18, Conclusion, the Perfection of Renunciation. Text 57 at the bottom of page 697. Cetasa sarvakarmani Mayi Sanyasya Matparaha Buddhi Yogam Upashritya Matchitta Satatam Bhava Cetasa sarvakarmani Mai sanyasya matparaha Buddhi yogam upashritya Matchitta satatam bhava Cetasa sarvakarmani Mai sanyasya matparaha Buddhi yogam upashritya Matchitta satatam bhava Cetasa sarvakarmani Mai sanyasya matparaha Buddhi yogam upashritya Matchitta satatam bhava Cetasa sarvakarmani Mai sanyasya matparaha Buddhi yogam upashritya Matchitta satatam bhava. Go ahead. Cetasa sarvakarmani Mai sanyasya matparaha Buddhi yogam upashritya Matchitta satatam bhava. Bhushan. Cetasa sarvakarmani Mai sanyasya matparaha Buddhi yogam upashritya Matchitta satatam bhava. Ladies. Cetasa sarvakarmani Mai sanyasya matparaha Buddhi yogam upashritya Matchitta satatam bhava. Cetasa sarvakarmani Mai sanyasya matparaha Buddhi yogam upashritya Matchitta satatam bhava. No one online, huh? Word by word. Cetasa, by intelligence, sarvakarmani, all kinds of activities. Mahi, unto me. Sanyasya, giving up. Matparaha, under my protection. Buddhi yogam, devotional activities. Upashritya, taking shelter of. Matchittaha, in consciousness of me. Satatam, 24 hours a day. Bhava, just become. Translation. Krishna says to Arjuna, in all activities, just depend upon me and work always under my protection. In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. Purport. When one acts in Krishna consciousness, he does not act as the master of the world. Just like a servant, one should act fully under the direction of the Supreme Lord. A servant has no individual independence. He acts only on the order of the master. A servant acting on behalf of the Supreme Master is unaffected by profit and loss. He simply discharges his duty faithfully in terms of the order of the Lord. Now, one may argue that Arjuna was acting under the personal direction of Krishna, but when Krishna is not present, how should one act? If one acts according to the direction of Krishna in this book, as well as under the guidance of the representative of Krishna, then the result will be the same. The Sanskrit word matparaha is very important in this verse. It indicates that one has no goal in life save and except acting in Krishna consciousness just to satisfy Krishna. And while working in that way, one should think of Krishna only. I have been appointed to discharge this particular duty by Krishna. While acting in such a way, one naturally has to think of Krishna. This is perfect Krishna consciousness. One should, however, note that after doing something whimsically, he should not offer the result to the Supreme Lord. That sort of duty is not in the devotional service of Krishna consciousness. One should act according to the order of Krishna. This is a very important point. That order of Krishna comes through disciplic succession from the bona fide spiritual master. Therefore, the spiritual master's order should be taken as the prime duty of life. If one gets a bona fide spiritual master and acts according to his direction, then one's perfection of life in Krishna consciousness is guaranteed. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshu unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, we're getting to the final few verses of the Krishna's instruction here. And so every verse is kind of summarizing instructions that have come before. Sorry. And here he's saying, just depend upon me and work always under my protection. In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. So this is the attitude of a surrendered soul, is that the impetus for action, what is it? Why do we do anything? That's the question. Generally, we're acting under the impetus of the mind, the senses, false ego. There's certain relationships we have with others. We may have a boss, which we are very concerned with what the boss wants us to do. We try to do that so we don't get fired and get paid at the end of the week. So there's all of these considerations. And it's all under the rubric, if you will, of service. The word dharma comes up again and again. You remember the important, does everyone have a book? I think we have enough to go around. Okay, good. Yeah, we're all set. So dharma is sometimes translated as religion. You look it up in the dictionary and you'll find that definition probably as one of several. But dharma has a very specific import in the Vedic culture. It's derived from the root dri, which is the same root as our beloved Giridhari. Dhari means to hold up. He's holding up the hill. So, but in relation to dharma, it means what is that essential nature of something that is its function? It's really what its essence is. And for the 100th time, those of you who've been attending these classes, I give the example of the chair. Now, our good friend Sureshwar, he sits down in the chair, right? And he has full faith this chair will support me. And so far, he had good luck. We've got some new chairs, actually. So the dharma is a chair. The dharma of a chair is that it supports you when you sit down. Oh, and I wanted to mention, I'm going to mention this maybe on Sunday. These cushions here, we kind of take them for granted. They're part of the temple. But they were a gift and figured out, and there's two. There's the small ones, which are kind of useless to sit on, unless you're a little kid about 40 pounds. But the big ones, this was the first draft of these. Yamunapati, many years ago, I think even before I got here, in the mid-'80s, he saw the need for this. People are going to sit on the floor. You don't just sit on the hard marble. So he figured these out, and he paid for them, and he bought them. And so next time we see him, we can maybe either verbally or just in your mind thank him. You see, so a very nice service to the Krishna and to the devotees. So the impetus for action. What is it that makes us do things? So we're actually serving, even when we don't think that we're serving anyone. We're serving our desires, right? Certainly we have to serve that belly, right? When we get hungry, we can serve that. And we have to breathe constantly. You forget about that, except in pandemic time, then you think about it a lot. Boy, I want to keep breathing, so let me put that mask on, right? And let me get that shot. So we're actually serving, when we even unconsciously. So when all of the material services that we do in the conditioned state, when there's no Krishna consciousness and maybe not even any God consciousness, it's just like we're just living. we're basically serving the needs of the body and the desires for some pleasure, some contact with the sense objects. It falls into those categories. Now, according to the philosophy that we find in the Bhagavad Gita throughout, and it's a basic principle, is that your consciousness that you in human life, because you have the choice as intelligence, you can direct your consciousness here, you can withdraw it and put it on here. So there's free will. So there's life of responsibility. So according to the cumulative consciousness that you've developed by your activities throughout your life, that's part of your subconscious. That's part of your subtle body. This is a basic principle. What are we actually? Just to contemplate the body itself, which most people identify with. Well, obviously, it's this construction with the bones and the blood and all of these different things, and the senses, right? We have the sense of sight and touch and hearing and smell and taste, and the active senses, our hands, our feet, all of these things, which we can do work, and our voice, very important. So this is what we have. Right? We don't usually think about it in these terms, but just to analyze and find out where we're at. So, but all of this, according to the Bhagavad Gita and the basic principles of the Vedic knowledge, this is all a constricted understanding and existence for the soul. The soul is in the body. Whenever you see an organism, we used to call it an organism, right? A living thing, something, an insect or dog, cat, weasel, whatever it may be, a worm. There's life there. There's consciousness. We say, oh, this is an organism. So an organism is a combination of a soul and some body. And there's varieties of bodies. Well, how did all those varieties of bodies come about? Because of the varieties of consciousness that are developed in one life. You develop that, and then it goes to the next life. Now, the animals, they don't have a superior intelligence. So they're coming up the scale until they reach human life. Human life is a life of responsibility because of the superior intelligence. We don't have to follow the demands of the senses. You know, we can judge what is the best thing for me to do now. Best in terms of what? Well, best in terms of getting more sense gratification. That's one thing. But how about the long term? Prabhupada introduced this wonderful phrase, Shreyas and Prayas. These are two Sanskrit words. Shreyas is long-term benefit, ultimate benefit. And Prayas is the immediate sense pleasure that you may get. Now, most of the time, you know, especially if there's no understanding, philosophical understanding, people are acting, especially children. You know, where's the pleasure now? I'm hungry, okay, let me go home and get something, you know. Or even when you're a little baby, you know, hungry, oh, the mother's here, okay, that's satisfied. So it's going on. But as you grow older, then you develop your intelligence more, and your parents try to instill in you the idea of, listen, your long-term benefit is that you study in school. I know you don't want to go to school spontaneously, but it's your best interest. And of course, it's hard to convince the kid, and probably said, I didn't want to go to school. He said if it wasn't for his mother, he would have never gone to school, because his father was always pampering him, you know. Anyway, so the school is long-term, you know, because you'll get a good grades, you'll get into a good school, you'll get a good job, you'll have to be successful, you see. Now, for a little kid, it doesn't mean much, you know, so the parents have to kind of, but after a while, you know, it's okay, I got to go to school, you know, like that. But even that kind of so-called Shreyas is still temporary, because even if you get into the good school and you get the good job and so forth, and you have a nice house and a bank account and so forth, but compared to the needs of the soul, the benefit of the soul, this is just a big, it's something that distracts you from your actual benefit. Because once you understand and you believe and you have faith that I am an eternal soul, which is the first lesson of the Bhagavad Gita, you're not the body. And then that wonderful verse, which is often, those who are into memorizing verses, one of the first verses, Dehinosmin nita dehe, komaram yovanam jara, tata dehantara prapti, dhiras tattanamuyati. So Dehina means the soul in the body. You can easily tell dehina, the word in is in there. So the soul in the body, dehinosmin yata dehe, within the body, passes through different stages in life. Now use the male, komaram, the young boy. Komaram yovanam jara. So you're young, little toddler, baby, then you grow up, you get to be a youth, adolescent, then you're a young man or a young lady, and gradually you're in your middle age, and everyone knows there's a succession. The same person, but obviously the body's changing. So what is it that's the same? Not the body. It's the consciousness. It's the soul in the body. We're actually transmigrating within this one body to different bodies. Our body is radically different now than it was when we were 5 years old, every one of us, right? And it's going to be different, when you get to be 70 years old. I just had experience with this. This happens all the time. When, I've been living in the same apartment for 25 years now. So, back in the day when we first moved in 2000, 2001, so there was a super, someone who would come and take care of the apartment, Jerry. So Jerry looked like, he was maybe 40, he was kind of a young guy, he was younger than me. So he just came up the stairs now, this is like 25 years later. So now he's 65, late 60s, whatever it is, So I hardly recognized him. I said, oh, this looks like Jerry, He needed to borrow a key for me to get into. So it's something like when you see a little kid, you knew him 5 years ago and he grew up, and you said, oh, wow, you've grown so big. The parents don't realize, they're always with the kid, They said, oh, you're so changed, like that. So this is the first realization. We are passing through this body, and we go into another body after death. That's another part of this. Dehinosmin yata dehe komanam yovanam jara, jara is old age. Tata dehantara prapti dhiras tattva namuyati. Now, just to show you the importance of editing, because it's so important to see how these books have developed. Because when we first had, as the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the first change is continuously from continually. Does anyone know the difference? Continually is used often to mean periodically, but over a continuous period of time. Like I've been continually giving this class since 1989, pretty much. I think I started way back there, maybe 90. Well, I'm obviously not sitting on this thing for right? But it means again and again, I'm regularly giving. But continuously literally means without stoppage. You see the difference? There's a subtle difference there. So we changed that to continuously. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. Okay, that was the same. Now, this now says a sober person is not bewildered by such a change, which is what more or less what Prabhupada said. And that had been somehow edited to, a self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. It's a big difference. Now, I think I and every other devotee who read that self-realized soul thought that that's the soul in the body who's transmigrating. So if one is self-realized, he's not freaked out by death. He knows he's going into another, but hopefully a higher body, maybe even back to Godhead. You see? There's no other way to read that. The embodied soul, and then it's the self-realized soul. But the sober person, that's Arjuna. He is seeing that. In other words, the observer, Arjuna's whole problem, his bewilderment, was that he didn't want to kill Bhishma Dev and Dronacharya, right? His teacher and his grandfather, and so many others on the other side. So he was bewildered by the change. He was, very disturbed by the prospect of them dying, and especially him killing them. So he wanted to leave the battlefield. Remember? And he had an argument based on the Vedas. If I kill all these men, then the women will be unprotected. There'll be Varnasankara, the unwanted population. There'll be a degradation of society. I'll go to hell for contributing to this thing, and then I'll contribute. So what's the percentage? Even if I win the battle, I'll have this kingdom, but it'll be soaked with the blood of the people I love. Who wants that? You see? So he's bewildered by the change at first. He doesn't want that change, that death of his friends to take place. But Krishna convinces him that nobody's going to die in this battlefield. Nobody ever dies. The jayate mriyate, this is another key verse from that second chapter. The jayate mriyate va kadacham, nayam bhut va babita madhabuya, ajo nitya shashvato yam purano, nahanyate hanyamane sharire. So, for the soul, there is never birth or death at any time. Either the individual soul or the supreme soul. We're as eternal as Krishna is. And the third line, aja nitya shan, unborn, eternal, ever-existing, primeval. Both these apply equally to us as they do to Krishna. And then the last line is specific for the battlefield. The soul is not killed when the body is killed. Nahanyate hanyamane sharire. So that verse is revolutionary. If you actually believe that, along with its concomitant of transmigration of the soul, because what happens to the soul? It goes to another body. That's the anosmia. Then that should pique your interest in, well, then what should I aspire for? What should I strive for in this life? Because inherent in that, and it becomes very explicit in many places in the Bhagavad Gita, is that there's no point in striving for things or experiences or position or anything in this lifetime, inherent with the body. Because it's all going to pass away. It's all you have a big bank account, you have so much prestige, and then you die, and the bank account is left there. The prestige is there. They remember you, put up a memorial, you know. But what about you? What happened to you? Well, if you have no assets in devotional service, you may very well lose the human form. You don't die, but you get your circumstances change a lot. And it's described in the 5th canto about hell. It's not an eternal place. There's no eternal damnation, but it can very well feel eternal. You know, I remember I participated. There was this, you know, the manifestation of Prabhupada's books had all kinds of wonderful pastimes around it. First of all, his incredible getting up in the middle of the night and dictating the books, you know, getting hardly any sleep. And just amazing. The Chaitanya Charitamrita, multiple volumes, CC, multiple volumes, Nectar of Devotion, of course the Bhagavad Gita. So in 1975, what happened was I started working on the books in late 73, and I worked through 74. And we were at the end of the 3rd canto when I started at the end of 73. And the whole year of 74 was to spend on the 4th canto, which was too long. It was too long. Prabhupada was not happy. By the end of 74, Prabhupada had finished this Chaitanya Charitamrita, and we had published like 1 or 2 volumes of it, you know, because we were trying to do the Bhagavatamrita. Anyway, he consolidated the BBT, the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, in Los Angeles. The production was going on in Brooklyn, and all of the, you know, printing of the books and then distributing the book. I mean, you know, they had a big truck, you know, and they would drive around the whole country with delivering books to different temples. Anyway, that was all centered in L.A. And I was working at that time on the Back to Godhead magazine, which you don't see so much anymore. So I was going to bring a pile of BTGs and show you. It's still going on, you know. It used to be a monthly, now it's every 2 months. But anyway, I was working on that, and Jai Dravida Dasa, Brahmachari, he wasn't a sannyasi yet. He was the main one of the main editors. The other was Hayagriva. So he had to leave. He was working with BTG, but he went off the Back to God, and I took his role of main editor, so he could work on the CC. Prabhupada he wanted the whole 15 volumes of CC that wasn't published, and plus a couple of volumes of the 5th canto, which were waiting, in 2 months, which is like, famously, you know, it's really amazing. It's the morning walk, and Ramaswara is on there, and he's with Radha Ballava, and they're the 2 managers, and they're hanging back and discussing, you know, how they could speed things up. So they caught up to, Prabhupada was on the beach, Venice Beach, walking, and they said, Prabhupada, we figured that we can do 2 books every month, which is a big increase from like 4 books in a year, you know, which is the 4th canon. And Prabhupada stopped the walk. He planted his cane in the sand, you know. He said, no, there's 17 books, get ready. All 17 books have to be done in 2 months. Ramasa said, Prabhupada, that's impossible. And Prabhupada famously said, impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary.
You have to do it, otherwise you're unqualified, you know. So I said, all right. So the walk resumed, and he and Radhabala, you know, behind again, they were talking like this. And then they came, I wasn't there, but I heard that account of it. They said, okay, Prabhupada, we figured out how we can do it, and here's what we need from you. We have to be able to call you wherever you are in the world so we can consult, you know. And we have to be able to fly anyone in from America or even England who knows English, who can work on the book as an indexer or, you know, typist, whatever it may be. So Prabhupada agreed to all these conditions. And the marathon was on, you see. So my role was taking over Jayawaita's role in the BTG so he could do full time on the books. But then Hayagriva was also there doing it, but he was getting a little bit, we used to call fringed out, you know. He had long hair, he wasn't attending the morning programs and this and that. So devotees were upset that he was, so he was dismissed from it, so they needed another editor. So Jayawaita had a contest, because there were several devotees who had some background in English. Anyway, I won that because I had experience, you know, already editing Prabhupada on the BTG. So there I was. So I was assigned first 4 chapters in the Antya Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now those who know the CC know that the Antya Leela is Lord Chaitanya's, you know, internal pastimes, Radha Krishna and all this stuff. So here I am, two years in the movement. I joined in '73. I'm working on the highest, you know, expression. You know. So I said, boy, I'm pretty lucky, you know. I was very ecstatic. And there was also these 5th canto chapters. Now the reason I remembered this is because in those 5th canto chapters, first there was this wonderful chapter of the prayers of Prahlad. You know, in the 5th canto, he has this set of prayers also that are wonderful. And then there's another chapter, the descendants, the descent of the river Ganges from the higher planets. There's all these chapters that aren't so famous. But then there was a chapter that is very famous, the final chapter in the 5th canto, the description of the hellish planets. And that was scary. I was sitting there late at night, and there were some paintings of life in the hellish planets that nobody wanted to keep on their wall. So I got to put them on my wall. I would look over there. Okay, all right. I'm very serious. What happens if you are a drunkard, you know? All right, hellish planets comes, and the Yamadutas come and they drag you down there, and you have to drink molten iron, you know, of something. That's what you drink for I don't know how many years, you know, one after another. You don't die. You're in your subtle body. You're in your mind. It's all the mind, you know. You're not in your spiritual body, but you have a subtle body. That's one thing. You like illicit sex, so they have a molten, red-hot form of the opposite sex that you have to embrace for so many years, you know. Now, it's all subtle, and it seems like many, many years, 1,000 years. But actually, it's just very short, because you're just on the way to your other body, you see? Yeah. But who cares? If it seems like 1,000 years, it is 1,000 years. You know. So that's the reality, but there's no eternal damnation. That's not there. That is, at a certain point, you get your next body. It may be a subhuman body, but whatever. But you're on your way back to the human form. So then when you get back to the human form, unless you come in contact with this knowledge, you're again going to do things, sinful activities, and go, you know what I mean? So that's the value of this. So there's so many verses. Labdva sudurlabam idam bahu sambhavante manushyamarta damanityam apiya dhira turnam yateta napateda namityavat niksheya saya vishaya kulasarvatakshat. Notice that word shreyas is in there. Niksheyasa means the ultimate good. So this verse, I think Krishna speaks this in the Bhagavad Gita, I'm not sure. It's from the 11th canto. So it's a call for a human being. Labdva, you have attained. Sudurlabam, this very rare, after many, many births. Idam bahusambhavante means many, many births. What have you attained? Manusham, the same word in Sanskrit and English, the human form of life. Why is it so special? Artadam, because it can give you the ultimate goal of life. Artha is a goal. Often artha means money, but ultimately it means returning back to Godhead in your spiritual body. But like all other forms, it's a nityam, it's temporary, time is passing. So one has to be dhira. Notice it's the same word from the first verse I quoted, dehinos minyata dehe. One has to, you know, contemplate someone's death and your own death in sober-minded and understand that the person is just transmigrating. So one has to be dhira, and then having considered the importance of the human form of life, turnam means immediately, without wasting time and letting yourself getting, taken away again by illusion. Turnam yateta, strive. Turnam yateta napateta namrityaya, but as long as you haven't fallen down and died, as long as you have life in your body. Anumrityu. Anumrityu means death is following you, it's over your shoulder all the time. If you're ever in a car crash and you survive, oh, that was a close one, Death is always ready. Yeah, but what should you strive for? Now here it comes at the last line of the verse. Nikshayasaya. So Shreyas is ultimate good. Nikshreyas is the ultimate good. It's Shreyas in its ultimate meaning, which means getting free from birth and death and old age and disease and going back to our original home in the spiritual world. Because after all, Vishaya Karosarva, in all those other bodies you've had, you've experienced varieties of sense gratification. Vishaya. And what did it get you? Another human body, another physical body. It didn't do you any good. It was a total distraction and harmful. So, Krishna is winding up his instructions now, and he's giving us this invaluable instruction of what we should do with our lives, so we can regain that original life of eternity, full knowledge, and full bliss, which is our spiritual heritage. And that was 57, right? So what should we do? In all activity, just depend upon me and work always under my protection. In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. So Krishna consciousness is systematically developing that consciousness by following various proscriptions and prescriptions. Don'ts and do's. Prescriptions, do this, and don't do that. This is the essence of surrender. It begins anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya bharjanam. To accept those things, even though they may be some troublesome, that are favorable for devotional service. Getting up early in the morning so that you have time, before Mangalarti, before sunrise. So you have time for chanting and reading and doing bhajan, and so it can affect your whole day. And things you don't do. Okay, we don't eat meat, everyone knows that. That's often, I've noticed over the years, that someone who's a vegetarian, by whatever means, is more likely to be interested in Krishna consciousness. And if you're out and out meat eater, it's really hard to develop that interest. That's mentioned in the Bhagavatam, the 10th canto. It says, Nivritta tarshai rupagiyamanan babaushada shrotamano biramat kauttama shloka gunanavanat pumamarajit vinat pashugnat. Pashugnat literally means an animal killer. It can also mean killer of the soul in a metaphorical sense. So this is a prayer from, a request from Parikshit, who's hearing the Bhagavatam spoken by Shukadeva Goswami. 7 days. 7 days, he was cursed to die in 7 days. The king of the world. So instead of countering the curse or going to, praying to Krishna to negate the curse, he accepted it as Krishna's will. So what did he use? He said, okay, time is very, very valuable every moment. So he went and sat down on the bank of the Ganges, and gradually all the sages gathered, and Shukadeva Goswami came and sat down and spoke the whole Bhagavatam. He didn't sleep or eat or do anything, but for 7 days he heard the whole Bhagavatam. So this is a verse he spoke at the beginning of the 10th canto, because the whole thing, the 10th canto is like the jewel. These are the pastimes of Krishna. This is what we want to really become attracted to. So he's been through 9 cantos. He begins the 10th canto. It's like one of the only verses, or maybe the only verse, quoted in the Krishna book. The Krishna book is probably a little, what he would call a summary study of the 10th canto. So it's a free-running translation with Prabhupada's comments. And the beginning of the foreword or the preface, he quotes this verse. So Shukadeva is praying, Parikshit is praying to Shukadeva, and he's saying, Nivritta tarshaya upagiyamana. Nivritta tarsha means free of all material thirst or desire, pure devotees. When your pastimes are sung and described by such a person, then that sound vibration serves as a bhavaushadhi. Bhavaushadhi means the medicine to cure the disease of birth and death. We want that medicine. You can't get it at CVS. And it's not a bitter medicine. Shrota mano abhiramad. It is a nectar that delights the mind and the ear and everything. Shrotam and the heart. Mano abhiramad. Ka uttama shloka gunanavada. Who would give up hearing the descriptions of that uttama shloka? Uttama shloka is the name for Krishna, means he who was glorified in the best of poems, best of shlokas. I'll give you a sample in a minute. Who would give it up? Puman varajeta vina pushugnad. Only one who is killing animals or killing himself. You know, the pashu could also be one's soul. So this is Parikat's way in which he's welcoming the 10th canto come on. And we can understand that if we can cultivate that taste, because we're getting, you know, in our lives, you're always introduced to new things. You know, as a kid, you know, new foods and things like that, and experiences. And sometimes, you know, you're repulsed by them, and sometimes you're attracted. You know, but we should consciously cultivate that taste for hearing about Krishna, hearing and chanting. Of course, it begins with chanting the holy name. The holy name is non-different from Krishna. It's totally mystical. How can that be? You know, that doesn't look like God. I mean, but that's the potency of the mantra, this special mantra. All of Krishna's powers and his attractiveness and everything is there in the very word Krishna. And when you analyze it, there's a verse just about that word Krishna. You know, Krishna bhu vachaka shabdo. Krishna, Nashta nirvati vachakaha, Tayaraikyam param brahma, Krishna itya vidiyate. The Krish, that syllable Krish, is all of Krishna's attractiveness is there. Krishna means to pull, to attract. And the Na is all of the bliss that he can experience, or we can experience in relation to him. So therefore, the very name Krishna is the param brahma. Total Aikyam, that you take those two and you make one word out of it, Krishna. Total Aikyam, Param Brahma, Krishna itya vidiyate. It's all very scientific. And Rama is also a spiritual pleasure. So you chant those two words. Hare is the name for Radharani. You're calling on Radharani, you see, who is Ladini Shakti personified. Ladini Shakti is spiritual pleasure. Krishna is always feeling, and he's enjoying in varieties of ways in the spiritual world. And when we feel some pleasure in the kirtan or doing something, we're also feeling a little of that Ladini Shakti. We're getting the blessing of Radharani. So these forces are all helping us to get on this path and follow it. But it takes determination because we're so conditioned and practiced. So, all right, let's read another one. Machita sarvadurgani mat prasadat tarishyasi atachetvam ahankaran nasrosyasi vinangshasi. If you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. If, however, you do not work in such consciousness but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. Purport. A person in full Krishna consciousness is not unduly anxious about executing the duties of his existence. The foolish cannot understand this great freedom from all anxiety. For one who acts in Krishna consciousness, Lord Krishna becomes the most intimate friend. He always looks after his friend's comfort, and he gives himself to his friend, who is so devotedly engaged, working 24 hours a day to please the Lord. Therefore, no one should be carried away by the false ego of the bodily concept of life. One should not falsely think himself independent of the laws of material nature or free to act. He is already under strict material laws. But as soon as he acts in Krishna consciousness, he is liberated, free from the material perplexities. One should note very carefully that one who is not active in Krishna consciousness is losing himself in the material whirlpool, in the ocean of birth and death. No conditioned soul actually knows what is to be done and what is not to be done. But a person who acts in Krishna consciousness is free to act, because everything is prompted by Krishna from within and confirmed by the spiritual master. So this is what's the benefit? You become conscious of me, you'll pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. So that's the positive. On the other hand, if you don't do that, you don't work in such consciousness, not hearing me, you will be lost. So there's so many verses like this in the Gita and in the Shastra in general, They're giving us the choice. We have this free will. We can turn our attention to any of the 100 billion things aside from Krishna, the varieties of material energy. But we should know, in our intelligence, that really you can't escape Krishna. Because even if you're completely enmeshed in Maya, that Maya is also Krishna's energy. And everything all the little pleasures and the pains and the sufferings and all these things, it's all a big play of Krishna's material energies, which he is ultimately behind. He delegates, you see? This is the thing. Prabhupada, you got to learn Prabhupada's language, because sometimes he's a little puzzled. Krishna has nothing to do. What he means there is that, it's from a verse, Krishna doesn't have to do anything. It's a difference. That idiom in English, usually it's pronounced half, not have, right? I don't have to serve you half, right? It's a completely different thing. But there's a verse behind it. There's always a verse behind it. Parasya Shakti Vividhai Vashu Yasei Svabhavaki Jnana Bala Kriyacha, the second half of a verse. Natasya Karyam Karanam Chavidyate literally means the Supreme Lord has no duties to perform. A duty is something that is imposed on you by a higher power. You can accept the duty, and then you join the army, and then you're under control, right? And you have to do this, you have to do that. Well, Krishna doesn't have to do anything. Nobody can make him do anything. But he wants to do a million things. So to say that he doesn't have anything to do, but he does all this stuff. Anyway, so the point is that Krishna is always in complete control. Now, when we're rebellious and forgetful of him, then he puts us under the aegis of the control of Maya Devi. And her job, thankless task, she's like a Durga. Durga means a prison. She's like a prison keeper. She's a warden, And she administers the punishment. And if we're good, we do the pious activities, then we can get rewarded a comfortable life. But how comfortable can it be when you're going to die? When it's all going to come to an end, or at any moment, all this danger, you see? That's the material world. You remember the 11th chapter? The universal form. Arjuna was finally very scared. He wanted to see it, but then after a while he didn't want to see it. Because this is Krishna in his most destructive form. Time. Kalos miloka chayakrit pravidho. I didn't see the movie. There was a movie about Oppenheimer during the building. I don't know if they showed it, but he was a fan of Bhagavad Gita. He used to read Bhagavad Gita. I remember seeing, it was in a magazine, a picture of him by his bed. He had a little statue of Krishna and Bhagavad Gita. So he quoted a verse when that first bomb blew up. They didn't know for sure, 100%, that it wasn't going to destroy the whole world. But we blow it up anyway because we got to win the war. Thanks a lot. Luckily it didn't. But you can imagine what it was like seeing that bomb. So he quoted this verse, Kalos miloka chayakrit pravidho. Time I am, destroyer of all the worlds. That's what Krishna says there as a universal form. So that's the forces that we're dealing with. We're infinitesimal souls, partner. But what we have going for us is that Krishna loves us. We're all his children, and we're all wayward children, having forgotten him. So he makes an effort. Why would he come to this place? He comes periodically to this earth, in order to protect his devotees, Padatanaya sadhuna, and to eliminate the dushkritas, the out-and-out demons. They're also his children, but they need the punishment. And also to reestablish actual dharma. Now that's not, it's not as much fun as dancing with the gopis and going on, but he does it anyway. He comes because we need it. He wants to try to save us. He speaks the Bhagavad Gita. He inspires Vyasadeva, who's also kind of an empowered incarnation to write. He's always present through his representatives, sometimes personally. He comes twice. He comes as Krishna and he comes as Lord Chaitanya to teach the easy method for this Kali Yugites. So why all this trouble? Because he wants to get us back home, It's just like a father. The kid goes out of home and he goes to San Francisco, back in the day anyway. Now I don't think anyone wants to go to San Francisco. And the kid but the father's always thinking about the son. When will he ride? When will he drop me a note? Maybe he'll text me or whatever, And if the kid finally shows up at his door, he says, "Oh, come on in, Bob. Come on, have some lunch. Take a rest. Here's your room. Your room is still ready." So that's Krishna's like that. But he has, he proactively tries to save us, and he sends his wonderful representative like Srila Prabhupada, who did so much sacrifice just for the welfare of others. There's this one phrase, "Pada dukkha dukhi," that is very famous. It means you're feeling the pain of others' pain. You see someone suffering, even though you're experiencing the highest Krishna consciousness, still you feel empathetic and you want to try to help the person. What is that? Sarve sukhino bhavantu, let everyone be happy. There's like the, what is it? I don't know that last part. What does it say? Mean? Healthy. Let everyone be healthy and happy. Yeah. So that's the feeling of someone who's Krishna conscious, is that they're empathetic to everyone. They don't want to kill any ants. You're walking on the sidewalk. I'm taking my walk. Now it's so cold, you don't see any insects. But in the summertime, I'm looking at the ground all the time. And why should I, kill them unnecessarily? Anyway, that's Krishna wants to help us, and he is helping us by inspiring Prabhupada to start this and maintaining it and these books. And here he's saying directly, if you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. But if you do not work in such consciousness, you will be lost, meaning that you'll continue your wandering in the material world and suffering. So Krishna doesn't want us to suffer. We don't want to suffer. All we need to do is learn how to coordinate our activities and our thoughts with Krishna. And it's very practical. It's centered on this chanting of the holy name. Kala dosha nide rajan asti eko mahadgunad kirtanadeva Krishna mukta sangha param. This Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults. Do we need more convincing? Just think of what happened in LA over the last few weeks. Just think of what's happening in Washington. Don't think of it. Don't even think of it. But it's a disaster. Why do we want to stay here? We don't want to stay here. We want to get out, right? So Krishna is giving us a way out. Just become conscious of Him. Try to dovetail your activities with Him. Take pleasure in the service, which is always pleasurable, and we can actually do this and benefit. All right, it's almost time to wrap up, so I'm going to give a few poems. You have a question? What happened with the books? Okay, the books. Okay, so we were able to finish the marathon. I was part of that. And I didn't, the artists were always in anxiety because they want to take months to do their paintings, but so one artist was finishing a painting of another artist, which is a big surrender for them, And so there's no time to do all the art. So they sent one devotee, a photographer, to India. They bought him a motorcycle so he could go around to the different places where Lord Chaitanya's pastimes were, and he would take pictures. And they used those as to illustrate the book, So it was a wonderful experience, and they actually got it done. We got it done. I was part of it within 2 months. Then Prabhupada wrote a letter to Rameswar and company, meaning that to all of us. Said, "Oh, you've done so nicely, and producing the books and distributing the books, and you will all go back to Godhead, And he was saying all of those who participated in the marathon. So that's my only hope, at least in this lifetime. But it's you read that Chaitanya Charitamrita, as you read it, you see this is the real mood of this Hare Krishna movement. That's where there's chanting and dancing and feasting and celebrating. That's the yoga that we do. And it's all attractive. All right. Oh, we have a question. Oh, we need it. Yeah, give them a mic. They have an audience. Yeah, outside with the YouTube. Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Welcome, by the way.
In the purport for verse 57, Prabhupada mentions one should, however, not do something whimsically and offer the result to the Supreme Lord. Could you define this whimsical nature? Would that mean if you were say, doing the dishes, that you wouldn't want to like do that in a devotional mood? Or could you define this whimsical?
Well, the idea is that we want to do things that are pleasing to Krishna, and we probably may not know. It doesn't necessarily mean it's pleasing to us. But yes, if it's something that's like doing the pots, you come to the temple, you volunteer to do the pots. That's pleasing to Krishna. I mean, those pots need to be clean so we can cook for him, and the devotees. So that's authorized. But if you want to do something, and at the end you want to play tennis or something, and after your tennis match is done, you say, "Oh, I offer this to the Lord. Thank you for letting me play tennis." That's whimsical. It has to start with the Krishna or his recognized authorities, and the getting up early and the taking the cold shower in the morning to really get up. That if you do that, especially if you're with others, that's going to be pleasing to Krishna, because it's not pleasing to you. I mean, on a material level, but it is pleasing on the spiritual level. Oh, now I did that sacrifice. That was a little tough, but Krishna is pleased with me. Oh, okay, so I'm on my way. Because anything you want to do in this world, there's some austerity to doing it. And ultimately, okay, I got my degree, I got my job, I bought this. But ultimately that's as far as it goes. But if you could say, okay, I tried, and we cleaned the temple up really nicely, look, it really needed it, and now all of us, and it's authorized, you can feel good about that. You see, that's something you can offer to Krishna. So it really comes down to authority, to understand. All right, because I usually do a little poem. It's getting a little late, so I'll do a real quick one. Since pleasure is a dream, Krishna supreme, the aim is prem, and the way is the name. That's a good. Oh, Lord Chaitanya's instructions in Nityananda and Haridas. Just chant Shri Krishna's name and worship him with all your heart. Follow his instructions, and to others them impart. That's the whole movement in a nutshell. Okay, if you want more poetry, write to me at dravida108@gmail.com, and I'll send you my whole file. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Oh, glory to Srila Prabhupada. Please stay for the kirtan. And